First of all, welcome to my first premiere here on this channel. The EU Parliament had a plenary session on the conclusion of the EU summit regarding Brexit this week. Many people have been cherry-picking small bits from the session from just a single side to emphasize their claims. I'll give you a full picture of this with speakers from almost all political wings of the EU Parliament, and that in the light of the restarted negotiations. As I said, MEPs from almost all groups in the European Parliament will be in this video. Almost, because from the ECR I had none in English at all. And in their own language I didn't get a transcript. And it was only the language, not like in some Brexiteer comments, especially under my videos, that handpicked the statements only of MEPs from the Identity and Democracy group. But because of this, just a quick reminder of the different groups in the European Parliament, sorted by size before someone complains, before I get to the speeches. The European People's Party group, the EPP group, is a centre-right political group of the European Parliament consisting of MEPs from the member parties of the European People's Party. It sometimes includes independent MEPs or deputies from unaffiliated national parties. The EPP group comprises politicians of Christian Democrat, Conservative and Liberal Conservative orientation. My party, the Christian Democratic Union Germany, is part of this EPP group. The Progressive Alliance of Socialists and Democrats, the SD, is the political group in the European Parliament of the Party of European Socialists. Centre-left in orientation, the group mostly comprises social democratic parties and is affiliated with the Progressive Alliance and Socialist International. Renew Europe, RE, is a liberal pro-European political group of the European Parliament founded for the 9th European Parliament term. Before that, this group you probably knew as ALDE or ALDE. Identity and Democracy, ID, is a far-right political group of the European Parliament. It is composed of nationalist, right-wing populist and Eurosceptic national parties from 10 European nations. The Greens European Free Alliance, that's Greens EFA, is the political group of the European Parliament composed primarily of Green and regionalist political parties. The Greens EFA group now consists of 3 distinct European political parties, namely the larger European Green Party, the European Free Alliance and the smaller European Pirate Party. The EFA consists of parties representing stateless nations, regionalists and minority political interests. The group has generally limited its membership to progressive parties. The European Conservatives and Reformists, the ECR, is a Eurosceptic anti-federalist political group of the European Parliament. The ECR is the parliamentary group of the European Conservatives and Reformists Party, but also includes MEPs from 4 other European parties and 13 MEPs without European party affiliation. Ideologically, the group is broadly Eurosceptic, anti-federalist and right-wing. Its main focus is to oppose unchecked European integration and evolution of the European Union into a federal European superstate on the basis of Euro-realism, as well as to advocate for free market policies and stricter controls on immigration. And they are the only ones on that day that always spoke in their native language. All the others had people speak in English so everybody could understand them, and so I couldn't include them. The European United Left, the Nordic Green Left, is a political group composed of left-wing to far-left members. The group comprises political parties of socialist and communist orientation. Non-inscrits are the members of the European Parliament who do not belong to one of the recognized political groups. These MEPs may be members of a national party or of a European political party, but for a political grouping to be formed in the European Parliament, there need to be 25 MEPs from 7 different states. Being part of a group grants access to state funds and committee seats, but the group members must be ideologically tied. Groups of convenience, such as the Technical Group of Independence, previously existed but are no longer allowed, and the minimum requirements for group formation have been raised, forcing less numerous elements to sit as NIs. And non-inscrits from the European Parliament follow me on Twitter, so greetings from here. And now let's get started with Charles Michel, President of the European Council.
Brexit means Brexit, like Theresa May said. But Brexit also means making choices about our future relationship. We want a deal, but not at any cost. The European Council was extremely clear. We are 100% united, and we expressed our unwavering support to our chief negotiator, Michel BARNIER. And we reconfirmed all the principles of his mandate. In fact, we face three extremely difficult issues: the level playing field, governance, and fisheries. And we need to find solutions in line with our principles.
So much about all the claims and comments under my videos that they are going to fire Michel Barnier. But once again, it is clear the red lines stand to protect the single market.
Brexit was not our decision, and it was not our fishermen's decision. Stopping access to UK waters would cause extraordinary damage to our fishing fleets. Yes, we want to keep access to UK waters for our fishermen, exactly like the UK wants to keep access to our huge and diversified markets for its companies.
Exactly. Everybody might always talk about fish, especially many Brexiteers, but there's all the big surplus in services at stake for the UK, which they love to ignore. There is no guaranteed access for services under WTO, and especially not unlimited one.
The UK wants access to a single market, while at the same time being able to diverge from our standards and regulations when it suits them. On ne peut pas avoir le beurre, l'argent du beurre et le sourire de la crémière. You can't have your cake and eat it too.
On Wednesday, a Brexiteer exactly brought up as a threat what the UK might do in the future, and under those conditions, no free access can be allowed to the single market. It's still on my community tab if you want to have a look at that one.
We are determined to ensure that all businesses, British, Chinese, European, or from anywhere, follow the same principles when operating in our market. It's only fair. We want a deal which is fair and balanced, but we are also ready in case of no deal.
That is, by the way, also one of the principles of the WTO, to prevent undermining fair trading relations. And there you have it again. The EU is ready for no deal at the end of the year. Next up is Maros SEFCOVIC, Vice President of the European Commission.
The deal we are trying to achieve would be absolutely unprecedented. This was the will of the EU and the UK when agreeing on the scope of the future partnership in our joint political declaration. And it is still our will. No other economy is as closely aligned to ours as British economy. It is only natural after almost 40 years as a part of the single market. UK companies produce the same products within the same value chains and with almost no transport cost to reach our market. We need to ensure that the European Union and the United Kingdom's companies face fair competition on the EU market.
That is a small part of the reasons why the starting positions for the UK and Canada are already different.
Deal or no deal, the withdrawal agreement must be respected. It is not only the matter of trust, which is of course key, but also of political responsibility vis-à-vis our citizens and the peace and stability on the island of Ireland.
And the European Parliament made it absolutely clear. If the Internal Market Bill in the current form, and I don't mean the Lords, becomes law, no deal will pass this Parliament. Let's continue with Michel Barnier. Unfortunately, he spoke French, but in this case, I can translate here because a transcript of the speech was available. We have made progress in recent weeks with the British on police and judicial cooperation, and I am aware of the vigilance of our Parliament. We have made progress on the issue of the European Convention on Human Rights, data protection, Europol, Eurojust or extradition. We see clearly the contours of an agreement. That emphasizes the fact that not everything is just about trade in these negotiations, but hundreds of other issues as well. The economic and commercial fair play are at the heart of our future economic relations. The British refer to the Canadian model often in their speeches. But we have, with the UK, as Maros SEFCOVIC said earlier, a single 0 kilometer proximity. 0 kilometers between the Republic of Ireland and the United Kingdom, thus between us and the United Kingdom, and an economic interconnection built with the British for 47 years, which makes this situation incomparable to any other situation. Once again, Canada and the UK can't be seen as the same. And to all those that always bring up the Canada plus plus plus, watch my Canada Style Live video. All that would have had to be part of Canada plus 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 is rejected by the UK government in the current negotiations. There also is a link to what the UK government really wants. And it's their own website, not a third-party one that fools around with these facts. We are negotiating this agreement with a third country for the first time, I repeat, in a context of regulatory differences. This, as in all previous arrangements, is not a question of encouraging convergence. It is about mastering the divergence that the British want to organize and will win with Brexit. So, he emphasizes a point many don't want to understand. It's not easier because at the moment all standards and regulations are still aligned. The UK government clearly stated to diverge from these in the future. And that is the basis for the talks, not the current regulations. To find a deal, you have to be two, and then we have to agree at the end. We are not sure that we will achieve that. I think it's possible. That is why we must also be prepared to assume the consequences of a possible no deal and, at the same time, continue our preparations for this scenario, which we do not want, by the end of the year. But the EU already is prepared for the worst case. The members of the EU will suffer in that case too, of course, all to a different extent, but it's still not as bad as harming the single market as a whole by a bad deal. Now let's get to Iratxe García Pérez from the Progressive Alliance of Socialists and Democrats from Spain. The horizon darkens with the prospect of abrupt Brexit at the end of this year. There is no complacency. The European Union must learn from the mistakes of the past. Today, Mr. Barnier, it is also supported by the Social Democratic family in its latest effort to achieve the best relationship with the United Kingdom. But let us not do this at the cost of sacrificing one of our foundations to the internal market. In no way should we accept unfair competition, distorted state aid or social and environmental dumping. Together with not repeating the mistakes of the past, we must also avoid future mistakes. So the first speaker of the Social Democrats agrees to protect the single market, and she also has Michel Barnier's back. Some of the mistakes of the past, by the way, were all the exceptions the UK got as a member. Those times are over. No new member will get special treatment anymore. And now let's go to Dacian CIOLOŞ from Renew Europe from Romania.
The European Union's future relation with the United Kingdom has reached a critical point. The EU was always willing to negotiate, but Mr. Johnson's government preferred political gains. From the beginning of the campaign of the referendum until now, he played games. The EU wants and needs a strong partnership with our UK neighbours, but for that to happen, we need a serious partner. And serious partnership should have a clear understanding.
If you take a look on the promises and pretense since the time of the Leave campaign, over the time of the negotiations of the withdrawal agreement, up to now, you clearly see a pattern there. Now let's go to Ska Keller from the Greens and European Free Alliance from Germany.
Of course, the UK government could have asked for an extension, and they decided not to. But it's also clear that we cannot accept a deal that would endanger the single market, social rights, or environmental standards.
Exactly. Even if I usually don't agree with the German Greens on many things, she's right. Boris Johnson could have had more than enough time to come to a deal. He chose not to take it. Well, at the moment, he chose to go back to that track, but He's changing so much, let's wait and see. Let's get to Kati Piri from the Progressive Alliance of Socialists and Democrats from the Netherlands.
Thank you, President. Colleagues, Mr. Barnier. When we last discussed the negotiations in the context of Mr. Hansen's and my report on the EU-UK partnership in June, we only had 204 days left before the end of the transition period. Today, that number is down to 73. Prime Minister Johnson then gave assurances that all it would take to come to an agreement was a little oomph and self-imposed a deadline, first in July and then on 15th of October.
Once again, nobody forced him to speed up to the cliff edge.
But instead of a real engagement in the negotiations, the UK decided to put forward an internal market bill which breaches international law, jeopardizes the Good Friday Agreement, and ruins the good faith between the negotiators.
And the internal market bill already is a breach of the withdrawal agreement. It does not become a breach when both houses voted on it. Tabling it was a breach already.
And here we are, in the midst of a second wave of the corona crisis, with all its economic consequences, and the UK government, for reasons no one can really grasp, decided to walk away from the negotiation table 1 minute before midnight. Because we do not need a deal in 73 days. We need it within 2 weeks. Only then will this Parliament be able to ensure the agreement's full democratic scrutiny.
And this Parliament can't be forced to rush through the process.
Because, President, let this be very clear to the UK government. Since the beginning of the transition period, the European Parliament has diligently and consistently taken its responsibility in reaching an agreement, because we believe that finding one would be in the interest of both the EU and UK citizens. But under no circumstances will we now be bullied by Mr. Johnson into rubber stamping just any last-minute deal after the UK government chose to run down the clock on the negotiations since February.
That game definitely will not work. Because of the internal market bill, the MEPs are really cautious now anyway.
And our position has not changed. We have always been very clear regarding our red lines: top social, labour and environmental standards, fair competition, effective governance, a sustainable agreement on fisheries, and full compliance with the withdrawal agreement.
Full compliance with the withdrawal agreement is the key word here.
The Parliament remains fully committed to a comprehensive agreement with the United Kingdom. But let me draw a clear line in the sand. If the UK government does not remove those provisions in the internal market bill that are in clear breach of international law, this Parliament cannot and will not consent to any agreement.
And that is the opinion of the vast majority of the European Parliament.
And finally, let me underline once again that as European Parliament, just as the Council, we are absolutely united in our support for our negotiator, Michel Barnier. Mr. Barnier, we wish you the very best for the coming few weeks of hopefully intensified negotiations with a good outcome. Now it's up to the UK government to deliver on its promises for a comprehensive agreement in line with the political declaration and the withdrawal agreement to which Mr. Johnson himself signed up to. We on our side are ready. Thank you.
So she says the ball is in the field of the UK now, and as it looks, they realize that too. From the next speaker, I expect a completely different view though. Let's get to Gunnar Beck from Identity and Democracy from the AfD in Germany.
Dank, Herr Präsident. The EU commenced trade negotiations with maximum demands for a level playing field on EU terms, pre-Brexit fishing rights and continued ECJ jurisdiction. Britain wanted a Canada-style trade deal and signalled some flexibility. The EU, in contrast, barely moved.
He really knows better than what he says there. But one should not forget that his party is close friends with Nigel Farage. That you have to keep in mind listening to this.
A negotiation is a discussion between parties with divergent views, but a shared interest in finding a compromise. The EU notably Germany, has a vast trade surplus with the UK. Yet the German presidency and the Commission remain committed to an unequal treaty on EU terms and enforceable before the EU's imperial court. Merkel and von der Leyen know not to negotiate because they know not when to compromise. That way, they will not have their way. Thank you.
That's especially funny when you know that his party in the German Bundestag, the federal parliament, always complains about Merkel making too many compromises with our European partners. Well, let's get to Terry Reinke from the Greens European Free Alliance from Germany.
Colleagues, I might not like to say it, but I think it has to be said, also here in this House. Boris Johnson has been lying to the people in the UK. The £350 million for the NHS after Brexit. No customs checks between Northern Ireland and the rest of the UK. And then this oven-ready deal that basically just needed signing on the future relations between the EU and the UK. Come on, these lies have to stop. If we want to turn this around, truth has to be spoken.
Well, I made a video with a long list of Boris Johnson's relationship with the truth. I can't disagree with her here.
First, Brexit is a mess. Second, finding a solution to this mess is not going to be easy for either side. But thirdly, and I think that this is important, there might not be a good outcome to this, but there are many different levels of how difficult this can become.
She's right. There is no positive about what is to come on January 1st.
So, Prime Minister, stop blaming others for your own actions. Take responsibility and come back to the negotiation table and avoid the worst outcome for the people in the UK. You owe it to them. Thank you.
And time is now really running out. Now let's get to Charles Puigdemont, non-inscrits from Spain.
Thank you, President. Another European Council goes on without concrete advances on Brexit. In addition, even when the deadline is ever closer, I hope for a good deal that ensures that citizens and enterprises can continue to live and operate normally, both in UK and in the EU.
No company will be able to operate normally from January 1st.
We are in the middle of one of the worst economic crises of our history. We are obliged not to worsen it with the political games. On the other hand, Brexit is a reminder that borders change. As we all know, today, support for Scottish independence is sky high in the latest polls with about 58% of the vote. The future of Scotland is in the Scottish hands, and we all hope that Westminster will again give an example to the world on how to tackle with this kind of situations. London needs to show again how a mature democracy behaves. The UK needs to remind the EU that a referendum is something to agree on, not an excuse to put political rivals in prison like Spain has done. Very soon, Scotland will vote again to decide its future, and the House of European Democracy must be wide open for their immediate return. Thank you very much.
Scottish independence now has a lot of support in the European Parliament, even though some people spread rumours they would block Scotland from joining the EU afterwards. But that's nonsense. And of course, he reminded people of his own situation and that of the Catalans here. Although there's a big difference between Scotland and Catalonia, but that's a topic for a single video. Let's get to Sean Kelly from the European People Party group from Ireland.
The discussion between EU leaders at this month's summit covered some pivotal topics for our Union. I fully support further EU coordination in terms of the pandemic and ambition in our fight against climate change. However, it is the ongoing negotiations with the United Kingdom that will have the most immediate and severe effects for my home country of Ireland.
Ireland will be the EU member most affected from January 1st indeed.
I have always been optimistic that when it came down to it, a deal would be reached. This I drew from the competency and fairness in which I have seen Michel BARNIER do his great work. But recently our confidence lessened in this regard because of the shifting sands of Boris Johnson's desires and his collection of supporters in Parliament, who seem more than willing to not only contradict themselves, but also contradict the foundation of the United Kingdom's reputation by voting to willingly breach international law.
Once again, the internal market bill breaks international law, and even the UK government says so.
On paper, with our years of close cooperation, the remaining issues on Brexit seem achievable. The sharing of fishing rights and policing state subsidies to industry should not be deal breakers to close allies for 47 years. The real problem is the lack of trust in the seriousness of any commitments the United Kingdom might give, which was most distinctly displayed by the abrasive introduction of the internal market bill and the legal justification for same. Sometimes we get the sense that the United Kingdom is more concerned with short-term optics than long-term substance.
Trust really is a rare good now, thanks to that behaviour.
Nobody in the EU, Ireland and indeed the United Kingdom, if they are truly honest, wants an extremely disruptive no deal. There is a danger that a last-minute agreement could break down under the multitude of legal disputes within a year or so. This must be avoided. To my friends in the United Kingdom, I say, there is room for a deal in line with your previous agreements that will finally provide certainty to businesses and citizens and avoid economic catastrophe. I plead with you to meet the EU halfway and ensure that ordinary people do not become casualties of ideology. Mr Johnson, bend the bluster and get the deal done.
That's what many too often forget. The normal people, especially those with low incomes, will be hit hard by Brexit. And let's get to Pedro Silva Pereira from the Progressive Alliance of Socialists and Democrats from Portugal.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. First of all, as rapporteur of this Parliament for the implementation of the withdrawal agreement, I would like to express my support to the European Commission and Vice President Šefčovič for their efforts to ensure full compliance by the UK of the withdrawal agreement and their commitments under international law. We've always said that trust is a prerequisite for a sound and future economic relationship, and we mean it. And now that the UK Internal Market Bill is under discussion between the House of Lords and the House of Commons, this Parliament recalls that we expect nothing less than full compliance of the withdrawal agreement.
They really mean it. There is no game or pretense on that side there.
As to the negotiations of the future relationship, I would also like to express full support to Michel BARNIER and his team and thank him for his remarkable patience and the responsible and firm manner in which he is pursuing the goal of reaching an unprecedented but also fair and balanced agreement.
Unprecedented indeed. What the EU is offering with a lot of obligations necessary, yeah, but still is a deal that never before any third country got from the EU.
I can imagine that Mr. Boris Johnson is having great fun playing with Brexit, playing with the no-deal scenario and the blame game. But I believe that citizens and businesses expect a much more responsible attitude. But let me say that I don't see how Mr. Boris Johnson can win the blame game in this case. We are running out of time, yes, but he was the one to refuse any extension of the transition period. He was the one to announce the breach by the UK of the withdrawal agreement and international law commitments. He was the one to refuse to apply the commitments on the level playing field on the state aid that were already agreed as objectives in the political declaration. And he is now the one who is refusing to receive Michel BARNIER and took the decision to suspend the negotiations. So I believe that we need a responsible attitude. The EU has shown political will to reach an agreement. We are waiting to see the same attitude from the part of the UK government.
Honestly, I don't care who wins the blame game here. There are people's lives at stake, their achievements and their income basis. It's not a fracking game. It's people's futures. But let's get to Laura Huhtasaari, Identity and Democracy Group from Finland.
President, I have a dream. I want all member states to do Brexit.
Besides the fact that it is really disgusting hearing a right-wing extremist abusing the words of Dr. Martin Luther King for her purpose, she is quite alone with this in her own group. The other parties like the German AfD and others dropped the demand of exiting the EU for their country because they know people won't vote for them anymore. The support for the EU in the member states is high at the moment and they won't get anywhere with that demand.
As EPP President Manfred Weber has put it, if Brexit felt like a success, it would be the beginning of the end of the EU.
That's complete populism here. What was always said is that if the EU gives the UK what only members usually get, that would be the end of the EU, and that's true. Why be in the club when you can use the facilities for free anyway?
So that reveals that if UK leaves EU without a deal, it means that EU has not even tried to be fair. I have a message for Boris Johnson. Defend your fishing waters, etc. You have now an opportunity to take your sovereignty back. Use it.
It's quite embarrassing when a member of the EU Parliament does not know how the EU works. Must be, otherwise she would know that every member is sovereign. If not, why was the UK allowed to leave? Only sovereign countries can do that. So you just saw the typical populist method at work today. Let's get to the one Brexiteers are really waiting for. Guy Verhofstadt from Renew Europe from Belgium.
The same with Mr. Epping. Mr. Epping is explaining us that we have not to do it in a European way. We have to do a bilateral deal. Every country with the UK. The last time that you did it, you lost New York, I presume, when you got your negotiations with the British.
Does any of my Dutch viewers or viewers from New York, I know I have, want to comment on that one?
So, if I have a suggestion to make, Michel, it's the following. That is that if we make a deal with the British, and I hope that there is a deal in the coming weeks, then we put in this final agreement, in this treaty, it's an international treaty, a disposition that automatically that treaty ceases to exist if the British don't follow all the commitments that they have taken, including in the withdrawal agreement. That's, in my opinion, absolutely necessary. Because otherwise, if there is a deal, if there is an agreement, and 27 will have ratified it, and they don't follow their commitments, it will be a huge mess. And it will be, again, the necessity for 27 decisions by the 27 member states to stop that agreement. So I think that after what happened with the internal market bill, it's in the interest of the European Union to foresee such a disposition in that final agreement, the fastest as possible.
A guillotine clause like they have with the Swiss really would make absolute sense here after the internal market bill came up. That would protect the EU from another I sign it to break it event.
And I hope that there is a deal, because the only way to secure the Good Friday Agreement, to secure the peace in Northern Ireland, and to secure our internal market. Thank you, President. In time.
One can't emphasize enough in this situation how important it is to protect peace in Ireland. And I won't stop repeating that either. But let's get to Jaak Madison from Identity and Democracy Group from Estonia.
Thank you very much, Mr. President. Mr. Barnier, it's always very funny to hear the speeches of Mr. Verhofstadt, because he's very active and funny and full of power. And he was telling for several years from 2016 that it's going to be damage for the Brexit. They're going to lose everything. We're going to make the huge pressure over the UK. But well, after 2016, they're doing pretty fine, actually.
Well, Verhofstadt is one of the loudest voices of the European Parliament commenting on Brexit.
And unfortunately, the EU is trying to mix together with a Green Deal, climate history, at the same time with some kind of economic reforms to take huge loans, and they're going more and more down. At the same time, UK and Johnson is just playing with the EU. And the EU is trying to play as a tough guy but at the same time, he couldn't manage any normal deal and just talking about the fisheries.
What the hell is he talking about?
So that's why I wouldn't take very seriously Mr. Verhofstadt, because he was pretty wrong to 2016 and 2017. And it's pretty clear and understandable that if there is no deal before the end of the year, the EU is losing much more than the UK is doing. And in some way, I'm pretty happy of that. So congratulations to Mr. Johnson. Thank you.
When you don't have arguments, you just attack people. And that you can experience all the time with these populists. And it's absolutely unbelievable that a member of a parliament says he is happy for the damage to the people he represents there. That says more about the extreme right-wing populist ID group than I ever could. But let's get to Chris McManus from the European United Left, the Nordic Green Left from Ireland.
Thank you, Mr. President, and again thanks to the many members for reiterating their support for the Irish protocol, which is extremely important.
And that support will continue, I'm sure.
But there are other key issues. The All-Ireland economy is not just about goods, it's also about the free movement of people and services. The common travel area, however, does not allow for free movement of EU nationals. An all-Ireland labour market and cross-border access to services are essential to the lives of thousands of EU nationals living in Ireland, north and south, as well as to the all-Ireland economy.
Commentators often easily forget that all this affects people directly and their personal lives.
The Parliament called for this in a resolution earlier this year, and now we should make it a reality. Because the Good Friday Agreement is based on rights. The right to access EU programmes and healthcare across the EU, and the right to be represented in this Parliament. We should find a way to give effect to these rights, rights that are being taken away by the spectre of Brexit, and the right to self-determination, which would allow the majority who oppose Brexit in the north of Ireland to remain within the EU through the vehicle of Irish unity, a central provision of the Good Friday Agreement, and which is likely to happen within the next few years. We all know the real problem is the partition of Ireland, and it would be wise for all of us to start preparing for Irish unity. Gurmaigut.
I usually have absolutely nothing in common with the extreme left in the EU Parliament he represents, but indeed the question of a united Ireland was brought back into focus by Brexit. Let's get to Christoph Hansen from the European People's Party group from Luxembourg.
Thank you, Mr. President. Last week's European Council did not bring a Brexit breakthrough, and frankly, nobody expected it. It is the UK side that has to move now. Yet London is sulking because their third artificial deadline was not respected, and Lord Frost even dared to be disappointed.
Well, there have been so many deadlines by the UK government, most people probably lost count already, and this one obviously is dead now too. They're negotiating again.
Well, in my honest view, ladies and gentlemen, the UK government has lost the right to be disappointed the moment it introduced a bill to unilaterally override an international agreement that was the fruit of a more than 3 years negotiation. A bill that puts the UK's international credibility at stake. A bill that was met with strong rebuffs from the European Parliament and the American Congress. A bill that was rejected by the Scottish and Northern Irish assemblies and yesterday by the House of Lords.
It does not matter really who wins the election on November 3rd, by the way. Biden and Trump both will not allow the trade deal with this bill endangering the Good Friday Agreement.
A bill that undermined trust and hangs over the negotiations like a sword of Damocles. We have stated it again and again. This House will not ratify an agreement if the withdrawal agreement is breached or threatened to be breached.
And that is not an empty threat.
Dear colleagues, a no-deal Brexit after 4 years of negotiations would be a drama for our fisheries, for our hauliers, for our people, and last but not least, for politics. Now is not the time for brinkmanship. Now is not the time for blame games. Now is the time to wrap it up and finally land a deal. The EU will never walk away from these negotiations, no matter the amount of spin that comes out of number 10. For this parliament, there is still time until the beginning of November. So keep calm and negotiate it on. Michel BARNIER, Maros SEFCOVIC, we trust in you. Thank you very much.
No, the EU won't walk away and give the UK another chance for the blame game. Hansen is from the biggest group in Parliament and also emphasized the support for the negotiators. Well, let's get to Liesje Schreinermacher from Renew Group from the Netherlands.
Thank you, Chair. Today I'm not here for a he said, she said discussion and what door was how far open and who threw it shut. No, our citizens and businesses on both sides of the channel are looking at us to be responsible.
Well, at least someone has to be.
Are looking at us not to play political games and are looking at us to reach an agreement. Because they know that a no deal is not in anyone's interest. We are in the middle of an economic crisis of which we cannot see the end. The corona crisis hit our businesses hard, not only the European, but the British as well. The British economy has hit its largest recession on record. So why make things worse with a hard Brexit? How could that serve your and our citizens and businesses? How could that be in anyone's interest? It is not.
That's a point no one understands and no one will be able to explain to me. Doubling the damage of the pandemic with Brexit can't be something good in anybody's head.
And I want to thank Michel Barnier for his tireless efforts to try and reach an agreement. It is the responsible thing to do. But we also have to remain clear that the EU will not accept a deal at any cost. We want a fair deal. But what's fair? That's the million-dollar question. Let me tell you what is not fair. A country that wants to leave the European Union but still wants to enjoy the same rights as a member state. It was the UK that decided to leave the EU. It was the UK that decided to be a third country. And now it's the UK government demanding an entire economic bloc of 27 countries to change its way of doing businesses.
That is something the UK finally needs to understand. They left. And so they left all privileges of membership behind. They are a third country now.
So, when we talk about fair, the UK government cannot expect us to sacrifice our businesses and our fishermen in order to get Brexit done. This is not their choice and they cannot become collateral damage in this story. So what seems fair to me is that the UK can only get access to our market of 450 consumers if fair competition for our companies is guaranteed and our fishermen can continue to fish in British waters. Time is ticking, so let's get Brexit done, but let's get it done right, because a hard Brexit is not in anyone's interest. Thank you.
Fishing is not our biggest issue here. We have bigger fish to fry, so to speak. So bringing that up all the time as the main discussing point is useless. But she is from the Netherlands, so I have to give it to her that fishing plays a bigger role there than, let's say, in Austria. So that's the full picture on the conclusions of the European Parliament. You got a full picture now. And that shows that the European Parliament did not fall for Boris Johnson's walk-away game either. It's proven now that it didn't last long anyway. He has given that up anyway. And the reason given by the UK government is the speech of Michel Barnier I mentioned in this video. But as you heard here, there was no change in positions on the EU side. The UK still returned to the table despite their previous claims. And if you now want to know more about European or global politics, YouTube has chosen another of my videos right here for you in the end screen, right next to your chance to subscribe to my channel, which I really hope you already did. I'll see you in my next video. Click and enjoy. Viel Spaß!